Let me talk about aging. So what does aging look like to you? Loss of shape, poor memory, slow movement, getting tired easily, loss of shape of the face, more illnesses. If it gets worse, dementia, life-threatening disease. Is it like this? So, do you think that each of these phenomena has a common cause and affect relationship with each other? Or do you think that they just happen suddenly and separately without any causal relationship? In this article, I would like to share my observations on what makes us different from other creatures in order to explain why we have so many diseases as we age. In the natural world, there is absolutely no creature like a human being who needs to be taken care of by someone when she or he gets old. For example, if you can't eat, defecate, or move around on their own, it means death. No matter if you are a lion, a monkey, or a fish, their descendants who have been away will not come back to take care of them, and their neighbors will not sacrifice themselves to take care of them. Even so, they are able to maintain their health and function to the end of their natural lives. However, rather than humans have a lifespan of up to 220 years, as Dr. Sinclair says, less than a quarter of that can be spent in good health. The reality is that a large percentage of people need medical care and nursing care in the second half of their lives. I feel that one of the causes of malfunction in Dr. Sinclair's analog information is a causal relationship with shape. Before I talk about the theme of this article, physical stimuli brought to the body, I would like to raise an issue in your consciousness. For example, observe the way children, young people, and the elders move. Children and young people, for example, when they reach out, turn around, pick up something that has fallen, pick up something that is on top of them, or in terms of their faces, when they laugh, get angry, or be surprised, they move in a flexible and flowing manner like a mollusk. However, as we grow older, our distorted and enlarged body movement becomes like a creaking and moving of rusty heavy machinery, and the elderly do not move in a straight and flexible direction. For example, reaching out. If you are a child, it's like this. But when we are an old man, it's like this. The same is true for nodding. A child's head is like this, but the elderly head is bigger and distorted, and even the elderly nodding causes their body to vibrate. In terms of facial expression, this is how a child's face moves to a smile. But for the elderly to go from a straight face to a smile, every part of their face vibrates up and down, left and right, in a distorted manner until they finally reach a smile. This is because the three stages of the face spreading process that I explained in a previous video have already taken place, and the spreading stage, in other words, the skin and internal structure that has spread so much, must be moved. So the expression can only be made while distorting and vibrating. So the movement is like this. You don't even question it because that's what the elderly is, right? I think the problem is that there is no perspective that the distortion of movement that occurs in the aging process is caused by the deterioration of shape. The phenomenon of aging is not only a matter of because of gaining weight. I think it is necessary to consider whether the shape of the face and body is original or not. When we can no longer move as agilely and flexibly as we did when we were younger, we may already need treatment to prevent aging. Can you imagine how much less tired you would be? How much less decrepit you would be? How much more comfortable you would be? How much easier to would be able to think? How much faster you would be able to talk? And how much better your metabolism would be if you could stay supple and undistorted? In other words, shape, movement, function, energy, and ability to think are all interconnected. The problem, however, is that we shelve the shape and movement issue, leave it until it becomes more serious, and only address aging when it becomes so bad that it actually has a disease name. It is my experience that shape problem can easily lead to all kinds of medical diseases. I believe that when we begin to lose our flexibility and mobility, that is the beginning of something pathological. Unless we address that, we will not be able to hope to be free from our pain in old age. In this video, I would like to talk about how shape, movement, and function all are related to each other. Now, let me talk about the topic of this video, the physical stimuli that occur in the body. Human homeostasis. My theory is that there is not only a mu function, but also a function that tries to maintain the shape of the body itself for the sake of cells. The various stimuli that I'm about to tell you about help with our function. I'm not expert in any of these, but I will say that this is a theory that is based on data from actual phenomena that have occurred through treatment. The first theme is what is physical stimulation. I will explain the structure and function of the body as I understand it, which is elucidated in the academic field of mechanobiology. Mechanobiology is a new research field that combines physics, engineering, medicine, and biology to study how physical stimuli affect cells, tissues, and organs. To put it simply, we organisms cannot sustain life without various physical stimuli. In addition, each component of the body maintains its shape and function by addition of physical stimuli. This is a science that clarifies the mechanism. This physical stimulus is divided into external and internal. First, external physical stimuli. External physical stimuli are mainly environmental factors of the Earth. Living organisms that have evolved on the Earth are subjected to various physical forces such as gravity, atmospheric pressure, and water pressure to shape and maintain our body. For example, the growth and maintenance of bones and muscles require mechanical laws. When astronauts return to Earth, they cannot walk. The cause of that is the inability to maintain homeostasis of bones, joint cartilage, and muscles. In terms of bone, the loss of gravity causes a decrease in bone density. This is because without the laws of supporting and moving the body under gravity, the balance of metabolism between osteoblasts, which build bones, and osteoclasts, which break down bones. When articular cartilage moves under the load of gravity, the joint fluid seeps into the cartilage cells and delivers nutrients and oxygen. Muscles also move and grow normally when they are moved under the environment of gravity. If the opposite is the case, they atrophy. Even if stem cells were injected into bones and cartilage in space, where there is no gravity, it would not be a cure. This is because the cell maintains homeostasis through physical stimuli from Earth's environment, according to mechanobiology. Next, internal physical stimuli. This refers to force generated within the body. In the body, organs and various other internal structures are always moving. When something is moving, it means that there is a force being generated. The heart beats, blood flows through the blood vessels, and lungs breathe. Muscles and skin are constantly expanding and contracting in our daily activities. It is becoming increasingly clear that the cells that make up the organs and tissues themselves are also subjected to physical forces that cause them to change shape and move materials in and out of cells to maintain our body. How these forces generated in our body involved in maintaining life. Let me explain in terms of blood vessels. The heart sends blood throughout the body with the force of its beating. The flowing blood pushes the blood vessels apart. At that time, the cells sense the force of deformation of the blood vessels and adjust the caliber of the vessel to determine the blood flow. This means that the cells sense the force with which the blood vessels are deformed and feed back the information to the vascular smooth vessels that regulate the caliber of blood vessels to maintain vital activity. Such mechanical responses take place in various parts of the body, from the cellular level to the organs, and generation of force, deformation, sensing, feedback is repeated to control the fundamental function of our life. Basic research on mechanobiology has been applied in many fields, such as wound healing, in plastic surgery, and regenerative medicine. The research of mechanobiology has revealed that cells not only respond to mechanical stimuli, but also has receptors to sense force and transmit this information to maintain the form and function of tissues and organs. As we begin to understand this mechanism, methods using physical stimuli are being studied from the perspective of mechanobiology in a wide range of fields such as cardiovascular, respiratory, bone and muscle diseases, and cancer treatment, and are about to be applied clinically as innovative medical devices and technologies. The mechanism of the body are still only slightly understood. The mechanobiology has begun to reveal one of them. Just as blood flows throughout the body and metabolism takes place, a chain of physical forces runs through the body to maintain its shape and function. Type of physical stimuli and their linkage, in addition to the external and internal stimuli I just mentioned. What are some more types of physical stimuli? Thirdly, movement stimulation by behavior. The movement of activity in actual daily life is also stimulus and vibration. The shock of taking a shower or walking, the vibration of being rocked by a car, the stretching and contracting that occurs when we bend our body, hands, feet, neck, or play sports are all physical stimuli. For example, try putting your finger in your ear canal and tap your elbow like this. You will hear a vibrating sound in your ear. If you put your ear to a person's stomach, you can also hear the sound of their internal organs moving. You don't usually hear that, but there is a lot of sound going on inside our body. Sound is also vibration and stimulus, isn't it? Fourth, the stimulation from the movement of the face and head. Facial expression, when expressing emotion, nodding our head, and facial movement when chewing or straining are also vibration and stimulus. Humans have been moving their faces since birth. It is not because we were taught to move our faces right after birth, isn't it? It may be because the movement of the face itself is a physical stimulus that is necessary for growth and bodily functions. I believe that head and face are the most influential parts of the body as a source of stimulation from an embryological point of view, as I mentioned in the earlier video. The face does not move as much as the limbs, but when we eat or talk, we move our faces. Our sensory organs, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin are located on the face. The skin of the face in particular not only expands and contracts with movement, but also has many tactile organs that respond to temperature and mechanical stimuli. The face is also where the mind responds. In order to activate small cells normally, a very small amount of physical stimulation, such as slight facial expression, may be enough. Fifth, stimulation by skin pressure. As explained by anatomist Lauber in previous video, the skin is under constant pressure, which is one of physical stimuli. I think the reason why we can maintain homeostasis in our body under various environmental factors, such as diving underwater or standing on our head, is because the skin protects us with evenly distributed weak pressure. As I mentioned in the last video, it is the skin that correctly pressurizes the subcutaneous fat, and the tissues other than the subcutaneous fat are also kept in a constant state by the skin. You have probably experienced the sensation of electric current in your skin when you suddenly feel threatened. We also know that the skin changes its state depending on our emotions. I believe that not only the environmental factors and internal stimuli mentioned earlier, but also exercise, facial movement, and skin pressure are all related to vital activities. What is the malfunction of stimulus due to the influence of shape? I have talked about physical stimuli. Please look again at the movement of child and the elderly, which I raised at the beginning of this video. You can see that the behavior, facial expression, and skin pressure are not quite normal in the elderly. Aging is a phenomenon that occurs in the body. Can many of the physical stimuli which I explained earlier be performed normally in this distorted state? The answer is no. The distortion of the body's shape leads to misarrangement and expansion of the skin. This causes a change in the way we move. I assume that it even leads to malfunctioning of our body's response. Use of physical stimulation in skincare. I introduced just 10 minutes skincare example, but I told you that this is a phenomenon that can happen to anyone. What does this skincare utilize to cause such a phenomenon? It utilizes a few stimuli, chemical and physical. First, chemical stimulation. Chemical stimulation is the use of products that are close to a mineral balance of the seawater and that are simple and free of extraneous substances. This is based on the premise that the products and ingredients are carefully selected and consistent. I assume that minerals cause changes in shape. Physical stimulation. Physical stimulation refers to the gentle application of mild vibrations with foam during face washing. The pressure is applied to the area priority around the eyes. There are the areas that we don't try to wash if we are not aware of it. That's why make this change of shape. Now let me tell you my reasoning. I was referring to what is described in mechanobiology, which says that the cells in the blood vessel walls change their orientation and thickness depending on the rhythm and direction of blood flow. That's how I came up with the idea that it could be applied to the entire facial response. In an ideal soft normal shape, the stimulation would occur with this kind of movement. I conducted various experiments on the procedure, temperature of the water, time, rhythm of pressure, direction, and strength. Even though it was an experiment, it had to be done on a person's face, so I had to done it myself first, and then put together a method that I thought would be effective for the client. I instruct them on what I think will bring good results and check the results a few days later. However, there are many people who fail to follow the instructions because of misunderstandings. Hanging habit seems to be a very difficult matter to do for some people. Fortunately, this is exactly what data can do. In other words, it's because the shape is guided by how it went wrong. That mistake can happen in a single skincare session, or it can happen in a few days. Some of those changes look like this. The size of the face, the overall length of the face, the roundness of the forehead, the furrows around the eyes, the deformation of the nose, the dropping of the nose, the roundness of the cheek, and the smoothness of the face line can all change in a short time. More importantly, I can understand why their faces are the way they are by actually observing how the skincare movement. Also, if I check how they spend their time at home, what they do, how and when they do it, I can understand how the shape is formed. I feel that this has a lot of room for improvement and a lot of great potential. This is because it has an amazing effect on not only the shape of the face, but more importantly, on the physical condition and full body shape. The reaction is a phenomenon that most people can feel even for a short time. Why does the face need such stimulation? Isn't it possible for the face to maintain our health without constant stimulation of movement? As soon as we are born, we move our face as much as we can while screening. The smooth movement of the face activates our bodily functions, doesn't it? Influence of the way modern people treat the face on its shape. Influenced by today's aesthetic trends, we will probably touch our faces more and more. I feel that people are handling the skin without thinking that the skin controls the shape. I would like to share with you 4 typical examples of modern people's tendency from the perspective of shape. Frictional areas, unwashed areas, area where the two occurs together, and rinsing error. Tendency of reaction caused by friction. When the skin surface is rubbed, the area thickens, compressed, and expands, and the internal structure thickens accordingly, leading to prevent ideal expansion and contraction. A typical area is the cheek. When the cheeks are continuously rubbed, they become compressed and raised. As a result, the cheek muscles, zygomaticus major, zygomaticus minor, laughing muscles, lower orbicularis oculi, and temporalis muscles inhibit their natural contraction and slow down their function. As a result, the normal flexion of the zygomatic, maxillary, mandibular, and sphenoid bones does not take place, and I feel that some kind of waste deposit occurs in the fiber structure of the tissues of entire face. Harmful effects of unwashed skin. The act of washing is supposed to keep the skin clean and wash away oxidoid old sebum and cosmetics, thereby encouraging the natural exfoliation of stratum corneum cells. However, today's skincare ingredients focus more on moisturizing than washing. I believe that this puts a strain on our health in terms of normalizing the internal structures through shrinkage of the skin. Skincare is needed to help the normal prescribed number of stratum corneum layers. From this perspective, the biggest problem is around the eyes, which is especially prone to overprotect treatment. In the last video, I told you to wash the area around the eyes as skincare to reduce the spread of face. This is because the current mainstream skincare does not control the thickness of the stratum corneas around the eyes. Why the stratum corneum layers around the eyes so thin? Because if it is not thin, it is not possible to have fine movement and normal contraction. If the skin covering the orbicularis oculi muscle is not thin enough to contract normally, the tissue around the eyes cannot gather. In my experience, the normal contraction of orbicularis oculi muscle has a profound effect on the shape of the face and whole body. In order for the orbicularis oculi muscle to contract as it should, it is essential that the stratum corneum layers around the eyes be in good condition. In other words, it is important that the skin on the surface of the orbicularis oculi muscle is of normal thinness. The forehead is flat and protruding area. Since the forehead is flat and protruding, it is an area prone to friction. In addition, oxidoid sebum on the forehead is difficult to wash off, and the stratum corneum does not exfoliate smoothly. As a result, the skin on the forehead hardens, which can make it difficult to stretch and contract. In addition, the distance between the skin and the prosteum is short, so once the skin becomes deformed, it can easily become strained and hardened due to stress and negative emotions. Lack of rinsing. The cleanser binds to the dirt on the surface of the skin and then washes it off, rinsing off both dirt and the cleanser. Normally, this should not be too difficult, but I feel that both the dirt and the cleanser are left behind. Let me give you a simple example. In front of me, my client finished washing her face by herself as usual. I watched her and felt that she didn't rinse her face enough. So I covered her face with a cleanser again, and after a few seconds, I rinsed her face with dirt and cleanser completely. It took only about 15 seconds. Here's what she had to say. My face feels so refreshed and smaller. My whole face feels better, especially my eyes. I thought I was rinsing well, but now I can see that there was a hard film left behind due to lack of rinsing. Another client had the following experience. As soon as she applied lukewarm water to her face before washing, her eyes, forehead, and nose became slippery as if she had already applied the facial cleanser. She was very surprised because she had not noticed that. At that time, I started with rinsing first to rinse off the previous rinse leaks. Her face got refreshing. After that, she started to rinse her face carefully every time, and this phenomenon did not happen anymore. As you can see, there are times when people misthink they are rinsing well, which causes the skin to harden and put a strain on the internal structure. Even with the same product, just by being careful about how you use it, the phenomena that appear are different, causing deterioration of the shape and even problems. This means that it is not a matter only what you use, but also how you use even the same products, which affects its function, structure, and shape. There are too many examples to list, but here was some physical stimuli of skincare that work in a negative way. Next, what kind of physical stimulation is needed? Skincare has the power of controlling the shape of the face and the whole body. By limiting the ingredients and using physical stimuli, it is possible to create a kind of biological reaction and control the shape. What I mean by this method is that it mimics repeated gentle stimulation in an environment close to the ocean where organisms can naturally activate. In other words, I believe that the mineral balance and physical stimulation necessary for living organisms is necessary to control their shape too. My hypothesis is that if we can recreate the repeated vibration of the oscillating ocean current hitting the face, we should be able to shape it smoothly. I'm doing this on the assumption that it will cause a biological reaction by bringing it closer to the ideal state of being in the ocean. Warm water is thrown into the basin and gentle minute vibrations are first brought to the face. This prepares the skin with 32 to 36 degrees to temperature of water. Then I covered my client's face with the foam and gently transmitted the vibration in a rhythm of about once per second. This rhythm intended to simulate blood flow. From the side, the vibrations are so weak that it looks as if I'm not moving at all. The rhythm of foam are not evenly distributed, but are broadly divided into two parts, one more elaborate and the other less so. The rhythm, intensity, and frequency of the latter are still being explored in order to improve the effect. The goal is to restore the original number of layers of the stratum corneum so that it can become soft and elastic. This way, the skin will try to return to its original shape on its own. In other words, I believe that the hardening of the skin and the slowing down of response are preventing it from returning to its original shape. Here are some phenomena when the shape is controlled by the skin based on my own experience and customers' feedback. Even though I'm only trying to restore the shape, I noticed the following improvement. My physical condition is more comfortable. Back pain emerged in my legs, headache, memory loss, and brain fog are gone. I used to have a low body temperature of 34.5 degrees Celsius, but now I can keep it at 36.3 degrees Celsius, especially in my case. I feel like I can maintain my strength in the morning until I go to bed at night, so I can do one more job before I go to sleep. I used to feel old because I couldn't keep up with the speed of young people's conversations, but now I can do it comfortably. I no longer feel the mental stress that I used to have, and the pain of being tied down by a body that doesn't move the way I want it to has improved. When I used to use my head for a long time, my brain would freeze and it became difficult to think. But that is no longer the case. Now that I have regained a comfortable shape, my body clearly responding better. My customers feel the same way. Customers who take proper care of their skin at home say that skincare is essential for them to spend the full day without feeling tired. The deterioration of physical condition, thinking ability, mental and physical strength caused by deterioration of the shape is very similar to what is called aging. Next, the relationship with aging. So why can't we live out natural lives? Let me ask a question in reverse. Is there any creature with a face as deformed as ours? Fish, lions, monkey, frogs, rat, insects. No matter how you look at them, age does not show up in the shape of the face. So why does age show up on the face of humans? We are hairless, naked, and have a thin skin. That's right. I believe that other creatures are covered with hair, scales, and thick skin, and as a result, they are able to enhance the maintenance of their shape. But not in the case of humans. We are capable of creating soft and delicate facial expression, aren't we? But because of the softness over the year, due to mishandling, our faces can expand, become uneven and widen, or click and move like rusty heavy machinery. There is no way to maintain good health when the original shape of the face, which is the most affected, is deformed. Isn't it possible to think that humans are designed to provide good stimulation to the body by constantly moving in a soft and appropriate size? Only humans have a structure that makes it difficult to maintain the original shape of the face. And furthermore, the treatment of the facial skin in daily life accelerates the deformation. That's why I believe that even just 10 minutes of skincare can affect our body shape. I believe that by artificially vibrating the skin with skincare as if the original good stimulation occurred, and even change the size of the face, we are able to activate the original self-renewal ability. Changing even the size of your body is a phenomenon that happens all the time if you take care of your face correctly. This is what I mean when I say in the Rejuvenation Was Possible video that only humans do this without thinking about its effect, and without questioning the baseless routines that have been passed down from generation to generation. The more beautiful face, the better. That's true. However, I feel that this standard of beauty can be detrimental to our health. Isn't it necessary to find a way to make both beauty and health possible? The normal number of the stratum corneum and its exfoliation maintains the normal internal structure. We all know that the trend of obesity has been increasing year by year. This is my question: why does the obesity trend not stop? Even though we have entered an age where people are health conscious and beauty conscious, and there is so much talk about dieting, I believe that the amount of food and calories we eat are not really the only case. One of the main reasons is that the function of cosmetics has increased too much. One of the reasons is that cosmetics has become too functional improvement, products that make you look tall even when you are relaxed, and have the ability to moisturize even the oldest and most deposited stratum corneum. As a result of increase in number of products with these tendencies, I feel that they continue to leave behind cells that should be detached, which in turn causes deterioration in the internal structure and even increases its size. I believe that this is the reason why the internal structure cannot be maintained properly, and the accumulation of skin cells and the expansion of the facial area are affecting the body's functions. The reason why obesity has not stopped, contrary to people's awareness and efforts, is because we are missing the ability to control the shape of our skin. Why I think it is the effect of cosmetic ingredients. The reason why I feel this way is as follows. I often teach skincare to a group of 2 to 4 people. I instruct them in the same way and teach them how to take care of their skin at home, even if there are some mistakes. Initially, their body shape changes steadily with the same product and care method, but if they adopt products that provide superior moisturizing and toning, they begin to gain weight all at once, or their upper body begins to expand gradually. This often happens when the physical stimuli of skincare are still part of the routine and only the products are changed. Another example is this. A client who had activated a well-balanced body shape through skincare and treatment, which I did, was feeling comfortable with that, but started using a product with excellent moisturizing power. The effect of the treatment which I did stopped and she started to expand her upper body greatly. And she stopped using the product with excellent moisturizing power. She returned to her original ideal body shape. As you can see, there are many causes that combine to create the body shape. It is still difficult to grasp the full picture, but it is clear that the treatment of the skin on the face has a major influence. The shape of the face and movement of the skin has a lot of influence. If you don't realize that, dieting and muscle training will be ineffective and require a lot of effort. There are people I know who have been dieting and doing strength training, but have not been able to make any change at all. And then they got tired of trying and just gave up. I feel that this is becoming more and more common. Isn't it because the size of the skin already determines the size of the body? The human shape is controlled by the skin. I think the problem is that no one is concerned about the fact that the phenomenon appears differently depending on what and how the cosmetics are used at home. The reason why I'm sending out information like this because I feel that if people don't realize that, we are in real trouble. The best shape of the body to maintain health. This is controlled by the skin as homeostasis. As mentioned in its mechanobiology, various stimuli maintain activities. By applying these stimuli to skincare, I can activate the skin's ability to restore the shape of the face and the whole body. I would really like to see researchers explore this reaction. Thank you for watching until the end. I hope you will watch the next one. Thank you.